Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's economics lesson. My name is Mr. Berry. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. Good day again, grade 12s. Welcome to the lesson. Our knowledge area for today will be focusing on your paper 2 revision for November examination paper. Remember, your paper 2, it consists of your microeconomics and the economic issues. At the end of the lesson, learners should be able to answer November examination paper 2. Our plan today is to look at the question in the economic issues, especially your 8-mark questions. We're going to look at the 8-mark question, but then to remind you of all the questions and subtopics that you have in your paper 2, you have 2 main topics: microeconomics, economic issues. On the microeconomics, you find the perfect competition, the imperfect competition, market failure. On your economic issues, you find inflation, tourism, and the environmental sustainability. Each paper consists of 150 marks and the duration is 2 hours. You have 6 questions. From the 6 questions, you are answering 4. 1 from section A, 2 from section B, and then 1 from section C. Section A is 30 marks, which is compulsory. It's a mixture of microeconomics and economic issues. Section B, you have 3 questions. Question 2 is micro. Question 3 is economic issues. Question 4 is the combination of the micro and economic issues. Section C, you have question 5, which is micro, and we have question 6, which is economic issues. Right, so to prepare for exam, you need to study the content on your textbook, on your study guides, and then using your examination guideline. The other thing that you must do is you must have a book that you use for preparation. Remember, you are not writing notes now, you are summarizing what you know, using mind maps in order to remember key points. And it is important for you to use previous question papers to see how you are responding and comparing to the marking guideline as well, how they want you to respond to certain questions. Right, so our exams will be on the 12th for paper 1 and the 19th for paper 2. Looking at our game plan is to answer section A, 30 marks, which is the combination of micro and economic issues. Section B, we're looking at question 2. If you are ready to answer questions on graphs, the microeconomics, perfect competition, imperfect competition, and the market failure. If you have mastered the economic issues, which is your inflation, tourism, and environment, then your question is question 3 and 4. Then section C, we're looking at question 6. And remember again, grade 12, so this one, what is going to guide you more? It is the 8-mark question. So if question 2 and 3, you have mastered both micro and economic issues, and when you look at the 8-mark question for 2 and 3, they are more nicer than question 4, then it means you are answering 2 and 3. Right, let's look at our section B question. So today we are going to look at middle order cognitive level and higher order questions. So you're going to look at the middle order questions and higher order question from the economic issues part. Right, so we are expecting any question that is a middle order from inflation, tourism, and environmental sustainability. Briefly discuss wages and exchange rate as cause of cost push inflation. Right, so causes of inflation, it is demand pull and cost push. So these causes are not an essay question, so they can come as an 8-mark question. They can ask you about wages and exchange rate, they can ask you about productivity, they can ask you about key inputs. So it can be anything that is asked that is a cost push inflation. Right, So you have this question as an 8-mark question. So all the middle order question, we are going to be given only 5 minutes to write 4 full sentences for these questions. Then we look at the marking guideline. Remember, wages is paid by who? A producer. And then if the wages are high, it will create what? Cost push inflation. Exchange rate. Remember, some of our key inputs, we buy them from abroad. If our exchange rate is weak, then it becomes expensive to buy. What is the impact on the cost push inflation? Right? You may write down your responses. Then we're looking at the marking guideline. Right, our time is up. Let's look at our responses. So remember, you need 2 points for wages and 2 points for exchange rate depreciation. Trade unions, workers are successful in negotiating of better wages. The wage will increase, leading to an increase in production cost. Production is done through all the factors of production. Labor is one of the factors of production that requires wages. If wages are high, it means now the cost of production is high. When the cost of production is high, the producer is going to charge high prices. Businesses will increase their selling price to compensate for the high input cost. So for them to make more profit, they need to charge high prices. If rand depreciates against the dollar, all imported goods and services become more expensive. And some of these imported goods are the key inputs, things that we need to produce with. If it costs more to import goods, and this will increase the price of the imported goods. So the price of those imported goods will be high. And some of these imported goods, I mentioned that we need to use them for our production, therefore increasing our production cost. Right, another middle order question that we have: discuss the fiscal measures that can be used to combat demand pull inflation. This is used by the Minister of Finance. There are 2 instruments. Mention the 2 instruments that we have for fiscal policy. Right, now you're going to write using those 2 instruments that we have. So you have 5 minutes to say what can the Minister of Finance using those 2 instruments do to combat the inflation. Alright, our 5 minutes is done. Let's look at our responses. So the fiscal measures that we have is government expenditure and taxation. How can we use this to decrease, to combat this, to fix inflation? Government expenditure can be reduced so that there's less money in circulation. Taxation can be increased, less money in our disposable income, less demand, less money in circulation. An increase in indirect taxes to reduce excessive demand in the economy. When direct taxes like payee increases, it means that there's less disposable income, then we buy less. An increase in indirect tax such as VAT will reduce the demand for many goods. When the demand is less, then it means that less money in circulation. A loan levy can be introduced to discourage borrowing. Reducing government spending by postponing certain projects. Imposing surcharge on imported goods to reduce the demand. Financing the budget deficit from non-banking sector instead of the banking sector where borrowing rates are high. Right? So all of these are ways of using what? Government spending and taxation in order to do what? To solve the inflation problem by reducing the money in circulation. Discuss the reason for the growth of tourism industry in South Africa. Why this growth of tourism industry? Can be local, can be international. We can talk about local people. Why are we traveling more now domestically? Why this inbound tourism, right? What attracts people to come into South Africa, right? You are given 5 minutes to come up with responses. These questions are called middle order because it's the questions that you can really remember taught in the classroom. You don't really have to think. Right, grade 12, our time is up. Let's look at the possible responses that we have. Reason there's a growth of tourism in South Africa. Increased disposable income leaves people with more money to spend on tourism activities. As the standard of living of the people improves, people are able to spend money on tourism. That can be domestic income. Working hours allow South Africans more time to travel, as many people travel during public holidays or long weekends. We are having public holidays, long weekends, that gives people time to be traveling. So reduced working hours, it means more time for leisure. More people have become aware of the importance for leisure and recreation. People are more now aware of their mental health, that they need to be basking in the sun of Durban to enjoy life. So for enjoyment, people are now aware of enjoyment. So tourism will be booming in South Africa locally. Improved transport, communication and accommodation facilities make it easier for tourists to travel to various places. Because of proper infrastructure, it's easy for people to travel. Not only the physical infrastructure, also the communication infrastructure. The fact that we are able to use network to find places to visit, it makes it easy for us to visit. Increased advertising and promotion make people aware of tourist destination, right? So people, this is more local as well and also international. Because of advertising, people can see that what is happening in those tourism attraction places. Right now we are moving to higher order questions. Where do you find the higher order question? 8 marks. They are in your 3.5, 4.5. The middle order, they are in your 3.4, 4.4, 2.4. Analyze the challenges faced by tourism industry in South Africa. This is an 8-mark question, so it should be an 8-mark question. It is an 8-mark question. It's a higher order question because now you need to analyze the challenges faced by tourism industry in South Africa. What challenges does the tourism industry have in South Africa, right? So for these higher order questions, you'll be given 8 minutes per question to respond. What challenges do you think are there in the tourism industry in South Africa? In South Africa, you can look in your community. If you had an attraction, what could be the challenges of that industry within your community? Right, your time will begin now. Let's look at our marking guideline. Analyze the challenges faced by the tourism industry in South Africa. Tourism activities are concentrated mainly in the coastal cities. This is cities with oceans and big cities, whilst most inland areas are neglected. So places where there are no oceans usually are being neglected as tourism places or destination. You see that people from abroad, when they come this side, they want to go to Cape Town because of what is a coastal city. There's a lack of infrastructure like roads to access and grow community in tourism. So when you look at our underdeveloped places, we don't have infrastructure. So that is a problem that we cannot attract tourism. A large section of population in SA is not aware of the concept of tourism. Poverty also limits some people to the extent that they cannot take part in tourism activities. So other people are marginalized, so they cannot take part. The money that they have is for the basic needs, so they cannot take part of tourism activities. So these are the shortcomings, right? As we continue, tourism is not marketed enough in the rural communities. for people to be aware of the places to visit. Cost of traveling is still high in South Africa since there are very few low-cost airlines offering affordable services. Our airlines are very few. We have very few airlines, and then that makes the prices of the airfare to be expensive. So to travel using a plane, it becomes expensive because there's no competition. We're only having a few of them since others are being closing down. For example, Mango Airline not operating. It means that now we are more left with your Fly SA fare, and then the demand will be high, prices are going to be high for local flights. High level of crime and social unrest may discourage foreign tourists to visit the country. They see these things on our social media, your Twitter, news, so they are aware of the things that are happening. They may not want to come. Outbreak of pandemic diseases such as COVID-19, natural disasters happening there in KZN, it may discourage tourism. Economic shocks may restrict movement of the people. Economic shocks being prices being high, inflation may restrict people wanting to visit because they do not afford. Right, so anything that is relevant to this question, you may mark yourself correct or ask the teacher if it is relevant for the question. Right, let's move to the next higher order question. Evaluate the benefit of taxation policy on tourism. Right, so on tourism we have few policies, which is your taxation. We look at spatial distribution, we look at marketing tourism. Those are policy suggestions. So when you look at your examination guideline, there's a part on tourism where it says policy suggestions. So our policy suggestion also include taxation, where we say tax must be fair and equitable and understandable by tourists for them to want to visit the country. So evaluate the benefit of taxation. So you can say, when you are evaluating, you can say the benefit is this and this. They are not saying discuss the positive. Evaluate the benefit. You can say there is a benefit or there's no benefit. You are evaluating the benefits of taxation policy on tourism. Right? So you can say the benefit is this and that, or there is no benefits because of this and that. Right? You are given 8 minutes to respond to the question. Then we look at the marking guideline. Alright, grade 12, our time is up. Let's evaluate the benefit of taxation. Taxation is the money taken by the government. What is the benefit of that? Or if it's not beneficial, right? Taxation, remember, it's a leakage. It can discourage tourists, but it can benefit tourism in a way that it compensates for the infrastructure that we are building. Taxes on tourism increase government revenue. Levying direct tax such as airport levies and entry and departure taxes on all travelers and not only tourists. Levying indirect taxes such as taxes and duties on goods and services supplied to the foreign tourists. Remember, taxation policies, we say it must be equitable and understandable. So when talking about taxation policies, we're not only talking about the money that we take. We look at the policy. What is the policy saying? Equitable, understandable, efficient. Right? So when we are mentioning this point, it means that we are saying it brings efficiency and understandable. It is understandable because these taxes are not only paid by tourists, but everyone is paying them. So it's understandable when you go to that country to pay that certain tax. This revenue is used to develop infrastructure necessary in the tourism industry. So for us to build the infrastructure, we use the same taxation. Recovering external costs which compensate the government for providing infrastructure, basic services, and public amenities to benefit the tourism industry. So the same taxation can be a benefit because it results in us building proper infrastructure for our tourists. Other people can say it does not benefit tourism by what? Taxes raised through tourism contribute to the fiscus, which is the financial, and the use of these taxes is not entirely to the benefit of tourism. It is used for our fiscal policy, general government expenditure. So sometimes it may not directly benefit tourism industry as it is collected. It can be used for other things. Raising revenue to government through taxes without any benefit to the tourism. So in that case, it means they take money from tourism industry, but it does not really benefit tourism. Added taxes on businesses in tourism industry could lead to higher prices. And if there are higher prices, the demand will be less. So tourism industry, businesses in the tourism sector, they will be affected negatively. Citizens are discouraged from tourism in our own country due to higher taxes. We may not travel also domestically because the tax is too high. Excessive tourism taxes could discourage tourism, especially from abroad, and this could lead to unemployment increasing in the country. People may not want to come if they don't understand the taxes that is being charged. Right, so anything that is relevant to that, then you'll be marking yourself. We are doing corrections. Then we move to the next question. Evaluate the impact of inflation on individual taxpayer in the economy. What is the impact? Now is the consequences of inflation to who? Taxpayers. How will the taxpayers affected when there's inflation? When prices are increasing, what happens to the taxpayers? You're looking at both direct and indirect taxpayers. What will happen? What is the effect? Right, you'll be given your 8 minutes to respond. Then we look at the marking guideline. Right, our time is up. So we are evaluating again the impact. So when we are doing the consequence of inflation, we know that taxpayers are influenced negatively by inflation. When prices are high, it means that this person who is paying VAT, even if the VAT remains 15%, but then 15% of a higher price, it will be more. So it means that you are affected negatively. Also, those who are working, the more prices are high, they are bargaining for more wage. And then when the wage is high, we call it bracket creeping. The more tax you are paying. So taxpayers are going to be affected negatively. Let's look at the responses. Inflation increased the marginal and average tax rates on the individual taxpayers. So when there's inflation, your marginal or average tax rate will increase. For example, if the price was 100 Rand, the normal price, you are going to pay how much? 15% of 100 Rand as your VAT. But if the price is 150, now you're going to pay 15% of 150, meaning now your tax rate increases. The progressive income tax system, where the individual with higher income will be taxed at a higher rate, leaves consumer with the less spending money. So the more you get paid, the more you are taxed. That will affect the taxpayer negatively because it will leave the taxpayer with less money to spend. Tax is levied on nominal income and not on the real income. Therefore, the average rate of personal income tax increases and disadvantages individual taxpayer even more. Remember the charge on the nominal income that you have. So if your income per month was 15,000, so they used to charge you in 15,000. Now there's inflation. Then your income has increased to 16,000, right? Why your income is 16,000 is because the prices have increased. They are not going to look at that. They are going to charge you a tax now. If the bracket for 15,000 was 14%, and then the bracket for 16,000 is now 15%, it means that now your payee will be charged around 15%, regardless that the real income has not increased. Because the same amount that you had, 15,000, with 16,000, you still buy the same product because price has increased. That would disadvantage what? A taxpayer. Individuals end up paying higher taxes even when they are not actually better off. Bracket creeping, meaning the more you get paid, the more you pay tax, has the same effect as an increase in tax rate, thereby reducing the purchasing power of the taxpayer. So a taxpayer will be affected negatively. Where do we get this? We get it from the essay. So any of the consequences, even if it does not come as an essay, it can be asked as an 8-mark question. So go to your examination guideline, look at the consequences: debtors, creditors, savers, investors, your BOP problem. Those are the consequences of inflation. Please go through those consequences. They can come as an 8-mark question if we are not expecting this essay as our section C. Right, the next one: how does the government contribute to high inflation? Government. Remember, there are prices charged by the government. We call them those prices that are charged by the government. Those are administrative prices. So how does the administrative prices result in higher inflation? Right, and beside that, government also tax, and then we said tax can result in prices being high. Right, let's go through this one together. How does the government contribute to high inflation? Increasing government spending without an increase in aggregate supply causes price to rise. So when government spend, it's more money in circulation. And if there's no supply, it means that there's too much money chasing few goods. Then prices are going to increase. Spending on capital projects, e.g. roads, housing, etc., that are more than the economy's capacity will cause prices to rise. So this is an increase in what government is spending as well. Increasing spending on consumption such as education and health and safety. Spending large amounts in the social sector because they feel the need to reduce unemployment and poverty. All of this can result in prices being high. We can also mention increase in the price of administrative prices. For example, water, electricity will result in what? Businesses also charging us high prices. That is the government contributing to what? To high inflation, higher inflation. Reducing taxation. When they reduce taxation, it means there's more disposable income for consumers. And then more disposable income, more spending, that can result in inflation increasing. So anything along that line also will be correct. Right, our answers are continuing. Borrowing money to raise the levels of social grants at a higher rate than the inflation rate. Decreasing personal income tax creates more spending for consumers, more disposable income, more spending for us. Decreasing company tax or import duties will lead to increased production and imports. That means there will be more money in circulation. Right, how can environmental degradation be prevented? Environmental degradation meaning we are not sustaining our environment. How can this be prevented? Remember, we cannot stop it. Pollution, for example, we can't stop pollution, but we can try to limit it, because for our production, we'll be polluting. Our economic activities, we are polluting, but we cannot stop it. However, we can limit it. Right? How can environmental degradation be prevented? Right? You can look at it in your community as well. Environmental degradation means that the environment is deteriorating, it's not being sustained. Right? You are given 8 minutes to respond. 4 full sentences, then we look at the marking guideline. Alright, grade 12, our time is up. Environmental degradation can be prevented by planting trees, as they can absorb carbon dioxide, thereby providing a cleaner environment. Remember, deforestation, we said, is bad for our environment. Avoiding littering by people, as it may lead to global warming. Educating people about the importance of recycling items or reusing them instead of throwing them away. Avoiding burning of paper and other materials, as this may result in pollution. Avoiding intensive agriculture practices which destroy the fertile land. Also, what you can use here, you can use government intervention. Remember, this education, your voluntary agreements are agreeing with the businesses to limit pollution. You have making them paying for for environmental use. So you can use those points as pointers for this, or you can be general like the marking guideline. Right. The next question on environment. How can the market be used to ensure environmental sustainability? Remember, we said the markets are failing to ensure environmental sustainability. So the question is asking you, how can the market be used to ensure sustainability, meaning the producers and consumers? How can they be used to ensure environmental sustainability? Let's go through our marking guideline. So on our own, we can't take care of the environment. Why? We take environment as a common resource. We don't care for externalities. We lack the knowledge. Sometimes we are just careless. So how can the government force us to take care of the environment? By including external cost pollution in the price of the product, the harmful effects of production will be limited. So if the external costs are included in our private cost, then we limit the production that is polluting the environment. By encouraging the use of environmental friendly through technology in the production of goods and services. So encouraging people to use more environmental friendly technology that is not harmful to the environment. By charging a price for a common resource which generally are non-excludable. So by charging prices for our common resources that we see that it belongs to everyone, we don't have to pay for it, so they can start putting prices on common resources which are general non-excludable. This will ensure that we are now taking care of this because it has been economized, meaning it can be a botanical park where we know it's free to enter there, is non-excludable. So for them to take off that botanical park, they charge maybe 20 Rand entrance. So that money is going to be used to hire a person who take care of that environment. By making producers and consumers aware of the environmental effects of their action. So through education, knowledge, indicated on the cans the harmful effect of aerosol spray on the environment. For example, the aerosol spray, it has a negative impact people were not aware of. So by making them aware. By encouraging research on the prevention of harmful practices or use of the product that have harmful effect on the environment. Right, so this one is you answering what the question that we say externalities. So make people pay for those external costs. We're talking about common resources. Make them pay, economize those common resources that are non-excludable, right? That will force people to do what? To take care of the environment. If there's lack of knowledge, educate them on the importance of taking care of the environment. So your answers should be along that way. Right, so we came to the end of our lesson. We're going to look at the summary of our paper. You have section A, section B, and section C. The section C, I always say to you, come to the exam carrying that 30 marks of your essay, because for your question 6, it remains that we are having 6 essays. If you know all of them, then one of them will come. We're putting them in the priority. We say that the top 4 essays, you must make sure that even if you don't get to the essay number 6, however, it is necessary to know all the 6 essays. Even if it does not come as an essay, it can come. It will come on your section B and section A. Right. Thank you so much, grade 12, for joining in today's class. Keep well. Until I see you next time.